Hello, friends, and welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. In this podcast, we introduce you to powerful women who are changing the game in and outside of their field of play. These are women's stories, women who happen to be doing things that many of us can only dream of, but the lessons and inspiration they share is universal. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord, and this season is all about getting you ready for the 2026 Winter Olympics. We are highlighting the female athletes that are going to become household names for the performances that they have in Italy, and today's guest is no different. This episode is really all about one of the worst and most universal human emotions. It's grief. It's one of the things that we all feel at various stages of our lives, some more deeply, more intimately, more often than others, but something we all go through. Sophia Kirkby is an incredible athlete from just outside Lake Placid, New York, and she is going to be making her Olympics debut along with her sport, women's double luge. In this episode, she shares a lot about how she has processed the grief of dealing with the loss of a family member who was so near and dear to her. Her dad was a bobsledder for the U.S. Air Force and actually introduced her to luge at just 7 years old. So we talk about how she carries that grief, how she carries him with her, how she has processed this, how she has moved on, and also stayed very present in that grief while pursuing this big dream of becoming an Olympian. She is also making headlines for her handmade pins that you can buy on Amazon, undoubtedly going to become collector's items from this games, and how much intention she puts into each piece. And the very added little nugget, Sophia's ready to manifest some big things in 2026. And if you happen to be going to Cortina and interested in going on a date with her, she shares how you can do it. That's all coming up in this episode of the Powerful Podcast. And so, with no further ado, Sophia Kirkby, welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on here.
So, one thing that I always love to do for a podcast like this, and especially with a sport that is making its Olympic debut in Milan Cortina next month, is just tell us in the simplest form, how would you describe your sport?
I would describe my sport as extreme sledding. It's the fun activity that we enjoyed when we were children, but now we have taken it to the extreme max, what it can do.
Okay, so explain to me doubles luge and how it is the extreme version of sledding. Because extreme, I understand that like extreme is the most extreme word you could probably find, but it doesn't feel extreme enough for what you guys do going down the luge track.
Yeah, so for women's doubles luge specifically, it will be making its Olympic debut for the 2026 Winter Olympic Games. Before, it was just an open category, however, the men took all of the spots. Now the IOC has made a specific category for the women themselves. However, with it being a new category, we only have 11 sleds that are allowed to compete. Unfortunately, there's more than 11 countries, and there's way more than 11 sleds. So there will be a lot of athletes that will not be able to participate who have been participating on the World Cup circuit. How I would describe luge as being extreme sledding is when you were a kid, you went and sledded down this hill, you rode it down, you grabbed the sled and you carried it back up. Sometimes you would fool around and you would grab your friend or friends and you would all just try and do the craziest stuff and tricks down it. However, in women's doubles luge, I am working on strategically being fast and trying to beat all the other countries in the world. A common misconception for women's doubles luge is we are riding front and back, almost sitting next to each other like bobsled. However, that is not the case. How we do it is we have a top and a bottom. So my top woman is much taller than me. In fact, I'm the shortest athlete on this team by far. I'm 5'3", and I think the next tallest person is Frank, and he's 5'8" or 5'9". Everyone else is averaging at 6 feet tall. But back to what I was saying, I am sitting on the bottom of the sled, and my top woman is on top of me, just a little bit seated far forward, because she is 5'10". So with this, we are more aerodynamic with our height difference.
I love that. So to use the sledding analogy, it's not just sledding, you really have to pick the friend. Like when we were children, right? You just go out and take whoever was crazy enough to jump on the sled with you. But in doubles luge, it is very important to pick your friend correctly based on height, it sounds like. But what else is it based on? Because you and your partner, Siobhan, have been competing together since 2022, correct? In doubles luge. So how did you form this partnership?
My partner, Siobhan Forgan, and I, we started sledding with each other during the pandemic. It was the winter of 2020, 2021. I believe the Olympics were approaching, and we were just, or no, the Olympics were approaching the following year. It was the winter of 2020, 2021, and our coach decided we needed another doubles team. We had a doubles team, but we need more. We need backups. And he looked at the height difference, which is optimal in women's doubles luge to have two very different heights. And on top of that, we both had similar sliding styles because we grew up on the same track, which is in Lake Placid, New York. And overall, we were competitors all of our lives. So we were coached by roughly the same people.
So I want to talk now about growing up in Lake Placid because it makes sense, right? So that's perfect. You guys are great partners, but part of that is because, like you mentioned, you grew up on the same track. You were all of 7 years old when you first tried the luge, right?
Correct. I was 7 years old when I began luge.
So what was your first, I guess, how did it even come into your purview? I'm from San Diego, California. It's not something that crosses, it wasn't a sport that I just happened upon, understandably, from outside Lake Placid. That's a little bit different for you. But how did you first come across this sport?
I came across luge because I lived in the neighboring town. However, that town is so small. I was in Lake Placid and the town next to that, Saranac Lake, my whole life. What happened was my dad and I were driving by the ski jumps like usual, and they were using one of the roads next to it for summer wheeled training, which means in the summertime, we're on paved roads with wheels attached to the sleds. And my dad and I pulled over. He asked them what we're doing, if I can try it. And then we just started showing up at their practices. And then once winter hit, I had turned 8. And that's when I got on the ice.
Okay, and first impressions, well, I guess let's go back because your dad was a bobsledder, right? So he had a little bit of an idea of sort of winter sports and the sliding sports in particular. When you took an interest to where you actually wanted to hop on the sled, what was Dad's reaction?
Well, my father is the one that pushed it. He's the one that introduced me to it. I was 7 or 8 years old. I'm not making any decisions of my own. He was the one that wanted to nudge me into activities and see what worked for me. Yes, he was a bobsledder. He was a bobsledder for the United States Air Force back when the military branches used to have their soldiers become bobsled athletes. And with that, he had a general idea of what the sliding aspect is. As he did multiple positions, he was a pilot, he was a brakeman. They really just played him like musical chairs, just seeing what works. And for me, I was just doing an activity my dad suggested that I do. I didn't think too much about it. I was 8 years old.
What do you remember of that first time down the track? Because for those who haven't seen this sport before, the crashes incredibly violent. But even if you don't crash, you are rocking up against a wall, moving very quickly. And so I was a gymnast. I empathize with hard falls very dearly as a young child. What was your first impression of the luge?
My first impression of luge when I took my very first run at 8 years old, I flew down the first corner. I went to the second quarter. Out of the third corner, I hit 8 walls. I was not having fun. I did not like it. I hit the right wall 4 times. I hit the left wall 4 times. And I finally got to the next curve and I was like, what am I doing here? What is this? And then my dad was at the bottom. He was, or no, I came back up to the top and he was like, Soph, how was it? Do you want to go again? And I was like, yeah. And then I didn't want to go again, but I did. Because honestly, there's going to be lots of bumps and bruises along the road. But to an 8-year-old, hitting the wall 8 times for the first time in your life, that sucked.
It's like it's a hit for every year of life so far. That is brutal.
Mm-hmm. It was a little scary.
I can imagine. I think I wouldn't blame you if there was still fear now, because like I said, y'all are going very fast down this track. So first impressions of the sport, not ideal, but you did get back on the sled, on the luge. So when did this go from something that, your dad kind of was like, hey, this is a good idea, this is an activity for you to try. When did it go from that to this is something I really enjoy doing? How did we recover from 8 hits in our first time down the track?
So after I first began luge, I joined the Adirondack Luge Club. It's a luge club based at the Lake Placid track in New York. And he just kept bringing me every weekend. Every weekend I kept sliding, and then I just got better at it. I wasn't hitting as many walls anymore. One time I did go backwards that first year. That kind of was scary. But when I was 10, that's when I got invited to be on the junior development team for the United States Luge. And that's when it started to be becoming more real and more professional because I started being invited to camps, which some of the kids were coming from other states. Like my top woman, she's from Massachusetts near Boston. Me, it was just a 10-minute drive for us. So it was very convenient for me to then be a part of this. And it just got bigger and better. And I just kept being invited more and I kept sliding more every year.
So sorry, can we go back? I don't know if you saw my brain trying to compute there. How did you go backwards down the track? Like can you explain the physics of that to me? Because I didn't think the track was wide enough.
So in some spots, especially for a child sled, the sled can eventually, if you hit enough walls and you get enough skids, it can turn if it just fits in the walls. Then it can turn and then it can finally go what it thinks is straight and parallel, but it's actually backwards.
Oh my gosh. What was going through your mind as you're going down this track backwards?
When I was 8 going down the track backwards, I was thinking, okay, I've had enough runs. We just got to do this backwards now. Because in the moment, you just have to think calmly, how do I fix my situation right now? Because when you're tense on the sled is what's connecting you with how you're steering. If you're tense, you're not able to get any movement of it. That's why it's really important, my part, even when we're in trouble, to stay relaxed, because that's when we can get the most control and fix our situation.
Okay, talk more about that, because it's a skill that is so universal to have, to stay calm in a moment that feels like it gives in to panic far easier. How did you develop that?
I developed staying calm under pressure over the years with my sport. That's a huge factor in needing to be relaxed and shoulders back, pressed on the sled. Even though I'm in a tough situation, the best thing I can do is stay relaxed and take my course of action as quick as I can. I think that this has, as you said, helped in the real world when it comes to especially driving a car. Like where I live, there's not the best drivers out there, but most importantly, I live in the wilderness. So I'll have deer and animals that are last minute coming into the road. And my older brother, he's a mechanic, so I think he prides himself on being a good driver. But one time I was driving him home and we were going really fast. We were going 55, and a deer just starts quickly walking up to the road, and I just slowed down, calmly adjusted. And he was like, whoa. He's like, I think I would have crashed. And I'm like, yeah, well, this is kind of what I do for a living.
What are the techniques that you've developed that maybe you can share with us of how you have, like, how you talk to yourself in those moments where it is so critical in your sport and in life to remain calm? How do you talk to yourself in a way that makes it possible for you to stay calm?
While I'm sliding and let's say I'm hitting walls or skidding, I'm not necessarily talking to myself. Our situations are happening in fraction of seconds. And in order to fix ourselves, we need to do it as quickly as possible. However, when your run is 45 seconds and it's at second 35, you're having troubles, you want to get back online within a few seconds or milliseconds if possible. So I'm not using words, I'm not talking to myself. It's just pure analysis. Where am I in the curve? Where do I need to be? Where is skidding? What is skidding? Is it my back end? Is it my front end? Are we too high on the exit of this curve? That is, I don't think that there's words going on in my head. It's just where are we? What needs to make it better?
It's like an analysis. It's like a flow state analysis, kind of, right? Like we talk in sports so often about reaching the flow state and just being in the moment and forced presence and all of that. It's kind of what it feels like, is like you've developed this sense, this skill to stay in the moment and just be really analytical. What are some of the things that you can do? Let's say you're coming out of a curve too quickly or too high or too low. What are some of the micro adjustments that when we're watching the Olympics, you're going to be making that we may hardly notice because they're so small and so fast?
So part of my job as being the bottom woman is to identify the little mistakes that we're making down the track. My top one and I, we do talk about certain steers that I should do and backup steers, backup plans. However, my job as a bottom woman is to identify and feel when we're offline. And that's mostly because I'm most connected to the sled. I have the fiberglass of the pod, which is mostly what's holding me, is completely attached to my body. Meanwhile, my top woman is mostly laying on me and part of the front end of the sled. However, back to your question, I can feel when we might be a little bit too high at the end just from the pressure and previous practices that we had. And some adjustments that I might do is I might do what's called a rollback. So I'm trying to level us off as we're being pushed out, and I might push my shoulder back, which helps level the weight because we are very top heavy. We are two bodies on top of two blades, and the top heavy situation is just quite crazy, especially when we're hauling at over 60 miles an hour.
One of the things that is so special, and I'm sure is going to be talked about, is how you carry your dad with you still on every single track that you compete on. Tell me a little bit more about that pre-race ritual.
Yeah, so I have the glove here with me. It's a little bit used because I've had a couple Olympic qualifications so far, but I wrote some of my dad's words. Unfortunately, my dad passed away going into pre-Olympic year. He himself was a bobsledder for the US Air Force. And on top of that, he and I just had such a great father-daughter relationship. We did so many activities, and I was with him. Unfortunately, but he passed away in June. So when I was back home in March, I was able to spend almost every day with him because I didn't know that he was sick because he wasn't telling me, and he told the whole family to tell them to not tell them that he's sick. But unfortunately, he had stage 4 cancer and he was getting treatment. So he was just deteriorating quickly before my eyes. And he didn't like to be recorded. He didn't like to be photographed either. So it wasn't until his final days where I just said, you know what? I am just going to record you behind your back. You can't do anything about it. So I started recording him, and he's just on his deathbed, just like telling me how much he loves me, telling me all these things, like in case he's not there, like he's telling me he wants my little brother to walk me down the aisle, and just all these messages he wants me to know because he knew he was dying. And It was kind of hard to hear, but he was telling me how he wanted to die. Which, it's hard to hear, but he was just in so much pain. He was taking medication for the pain. He was on crutches for his last 2 months. His bones couldn't hold a metal disc that he had in his hip because he had surgery when he was 50. So he just had like a bunch of crunching, rambling going on. And there's nothing you can do about it. His bones were getting weaker. You can't make it better. But back to the glove. So My dad would always pay attention. He would always watch. He would always record and photograph all of my results. And I wrote his words on my glove here just so I can feel like I still have him racing with me and on my journey to the Olympics.
I can only imagine how challenging those last few months were for you. It is, there aren't words to describe how hard it is to watch someone you love turn into, become just a shell of themselves and the person that you grew up with. And what led you to saying, hey, I'm going to take these really special moments with my dad in his final days, and I'm going to use that to help me sort of process this loss, to empower me on this journey that he would be so incredibly proud of you for taking? How did you move through that grief process?
To grieve, I took some time off of sport. I oftentimes didn't work out on Mondays, or it would be a Wednesday. I would often take one day off the week because I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep for months. And I'm not being any way exaggerating. I learned what it's like to lay in bed for 9 hours every day from, I think, almost a year. Like, even going into the season, where we had our best season, I still wasn't sleeping great. When my dad was sick, I just developed this nerve pulse of, dad died. Like, I need to go now. I need to go help. I need to go do this. I just was training myself for that moment. And I really shouldn't have, but I just knew he was passing away and I just didn't know at what moment. And every time I saw him, he just kept getting sicker and sicker. And I liked how when finally I did know, he was honest with me and he said, Soph, I'm not going to get any better. And it's hard to hear because every time I'd see him get worse, in my head, I'm like, oh, he's going to get better. That bruise will heal. The bruise got worse. And I take his recordings. I don't think that that's what helped me grieve. What really helped me grieve was just taking time to rest. Even though I wasn't sleeping, at least I was laying down. And I did a bunch of pottery, which really helped me. It was just a place where I can stop getting all these anxious thoughts because I had never had anxiety before. And yet I think that's what that was. I just couldn't sleep. And I just had all these racing thoughts, all these memories, all these. Lucky for me, I didn't have too many regrets. I didn't have too many regrets about my dad passing away because I had accepted a while ago that it's not my fault and there's nothing I can do. But I don't think I ever completely finished my grief. I still think about him now at least once a day. Maybe if I'm lucky, once every other day. But now that we're going into the Olympics, I know how proud he would have been because he was telling me how proud he was of me all my life. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I finished grieving. I don't know if I ever will.
I don't know that you ever could when you have such a special relationship with your dad. And yeah, I don't blame you, but thank you for being so vulnerable about that grief process. I think it's something that is so universally human to grieve somebody that you love when they're not with you anymore. And yeah, your vulnerability matters. So thank you. I want to talk about the pottery because you carry your dad's words on your glove every single competition. You also talked about moving into pottery, and that has become a part of your Olympic journey as well. And one of, dare I say, the most coveted pre-Olympics possession that any athlete on Team USA can have, because you're making these custom pins for your teammates and for fans and for competitors. Tell me a little bit about how your pottery journey has become a part of your Olympic journey.
So I really like pottery, and pottery, luckily for me, so many people can relate to it Many people can relate to pottery more than luge, believe it or not. Pottery can be done in classes, and it's just known around the world. Everyone of almost every culture, as far as I can see, molds and shapes clay of most forms. But yeah, I brought myself to try and bring my pottery with me this year because I found out that my pottery is just like a luxury sometimes. Like I designed some cups that I'll be bringing with me. This one says Women's Doubles Luge 2026. I wanted it to be blue. I didn't have any handles on it because I didn't want the handle to break. So I figured if there's no handle to break, there won't be a handle to break. But I tried so hard to make some like mountains on here. These are supposed to be little mountains.
Cute.
And it's really just awesome going to Italy. We've already been there. I'm fortunate that I've already been to Cortina 3 times now in the past year. I went to one of the pre-homologations back in March, April. I went to one of our first test events at the end of October. And then I think another one at the beginning of December or end of November. Yeah. And it's just such a luxury to have a cappuccino in my own cup.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. However, the only issue I have now is cleaning it and finding a way to clean it. But that's why I have my pins. So I've made myself a bunch of pins, not just for myself. I also asked a bunch of my friends who I don't know if they're friends, but cool people that have been to the Olympics, that because of my job and occupation, I run into a bunch of them while training. Like these are some of the pins that I make for women's doubles luge. I've made just so many colors. I can't even tell you how many variations I have. I bet you I have more variations than all of the Olympic committees from every nation has made. Because, well, to be honest, each and every one is unique. It's hand painted, it's handmade. One's going to be off center, another one's going to have a little bit more glaze. And it was just a lot of fun to make thousands of these things. But
How
not
long
only
does it take you?
It's tough because it does take 2 weeks to make one, but that's just because of the long process. Like I have to make it from clay, which doesn't take too long. Like the clay state, I can do about 500 in one day. And then I have to let it dry. And then the kiln master has to start the kiln and fire it. That takes about 2 days because it heats up for a day and a half and it has to cool down. And it reaches like 2,000 degrees. So it's got a quite cooling process. But most importantly, it was a bunch of trial and error. Yes, it doesn't take too long to make these products. However, I was just doing it as I went. I was asking all these people, I was like, hey, do you want to join my pin project that I'm making? I'm trying to be the first Olympian to ever hand make pins and trade with them at the Olympics. And lucky for me, they all said yes.
How could they not?
I was a little bit surprised because I have some really important people that I made pins for. For example, this is a hockey pin, and this is for Hillary Knight. She's the captain of Team USA Women's Hockey. They had a camp because they have a camp annually for their Team USA selections because we are the Miracle on Ice hockey rink. So they fly them over and they do some of their qualifications, whatever that process is. And while they were there, I was just sitting at the table eating my dinner. And I was just like, maybe I should ask one of them if they want to join my pin project. And I just Googled, because I'm not quite familiar with hockey, but I Googled, who is the captain of Team USA Women's Hockey? And a picture of Hillary's face came up. And then I looked up and she was just sitting across from me. And I was like, her. Okay, I'm going to ask her if she wants to join. And she said yes.
That's so good.
It's not just Hillary. I have Alana Myers-Taylor. She is a multi-Olympic medalist. Let me see what I got in here. I see a skeleton.
So how many are you bringing with you to Italy?
Honestly, I didn't do a head count, but I'm going to guesstimate I have about 200. And But I also wanted to make it accessible for fans at home. So I did start an Amazon handmade page. Believe it or not, they did make a handmade page. They're most likely competing with Etsy and everyone else in the world. But I just pulled it out. Here is one of my special USA flag bobsled. I just want it to be really important that I made these people look like girls. Like, I gave Alana a very woman figure. I gave her a ponytail. I gave her like a skinny waist and a bigger bum and a ponytail. That's what I tried to do with everyone, including this. This is Skeleton. I gave her a ponytail. You can't really see it, but I gave Hillary a ponytail. I just tried to make them look like girls instead of potential boys. Like, I gave Siobhan braids, so she's flying with braids because she often wears braids, and I'm wearing a ponytail. But sorry, I got sidetracked. So I'm trying to bring like 200 of these. I have about maybe 60 on me right now, and then I have another box with about 140 that will join me if I make the Olympic team.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool because it feels like in Paris last year, oh my gosh, 2 years ago now, it's 2026. That became one of the coolest little cult followings of the Olympics was all these different pins. And now everybody who gets a one of a kind Sophia pin is going to just have the best trading options of all of them. I love that. That is so much. So, and the mountains, they mirror Cortina exactly. You crushed it.
Thank you. But yeah, I just wanted to be unique. And also just try and promote women's doubles luge. Yes, it is making its debut. However, luge is not a sport that's commonly talked about. Unfortunately, you can only do it in 2 locations in the United States, which is Lake Placid, New York, and Park City, Utah. And on top of that, there's not a huge participation rate. Like, not many people want to sign up for that. So with women's doubles luge, I just wanted to try and promote that by bringing a product, being something new, being something different. No one, as far as I've researched, no one has ever handmade a product, as far as I'm aware, but especially no one has ever handmade pins and brought them to trade in the Olympic Village.
And watch out.
I've already had a bunch of Olympians try to reach out to me. The Olympic Channel, they have made a couple comments. They themselves told me that these will be collector's items. We can't wait to trade with you. And I'm really looking forward to being known as that girl who made her own pins.
The pin girl. She's making history in multiple ways in Milan Cortina. Love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, Sophia, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your journey. Cannot wait to watch the debut of women's doubles luge. And thank you again for your vulnerability in sharing how you carry your dad with you. I have zero doubts that he would be so incredibly proud of you, just like he was your entire life. And we're all rooting for you and really, really grateful that you joined us here on the Powerful Podcast.
Well, thank you. If you would like, I do have one more thing that I'm going to try and promote in the games. Well, not promote. Yes. I'm just going to let people inside of my life. So I'm 24 and I'm single. These are going to be the only Olympics that'll be single. Maybe, hopefully. So I'm going to allow people into my dating life. Where I will be in Cortina, and there won't be too many people there. There's the sliding sports of luge, bobsled, skeleton. There's women's alpine or downhill, whatever Lindsey Vonn is doing.
Women's alpine skiing.
And then curling.
Yep.
So overall, there's not going to be too many Olympians where I'll be, but there'll be lots of tourists. So I'm going to tell the world that my dating platforms will be open and they will have chances to go on dates with me if they'd like. And I'm just going to share some of my experiences. Like, I want to share with people screenshots of people's first lines of how they tried to reel me in. And I'm going to ask the crowd if maybe I should go on a date with Dave, or what do you guys think of Kevin? Like, this was such a sweet comment. I should probably go grab a cappuccino with him.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed.
Mm-hmm. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully going on a lot of dates. I haven't gone on a date. It's been a while. In the last 3 years, I think I went on a date.
Well, you've been busy. trying to make the Olympic team.
I've been busy. But my event is one of the first events to be done. And luckily, I'm on Team USA. Team USA is one of the few countries that allows housing for their athletes during the entire games. Most athletes have to leave the Olympic Village within, I think, 3 days after their event has finished. However, fortunately for me, I'm on Team USA, and I'm going to make Cortina my little playground.
I love it. It's like Bachelorette goes to the Olympics is what we're going to have. We're going to see you compete for the first ever medal in women's doubles luge. And then we're going to see everyone else compete for a chance to get to date you while you're still in Cortina.
Yeah, and I just want my fellow ladies to live vicariously through me because majority of my followers are women, believe it or not. And so I just want to be able to talk to the camera and be like, married women, girlfriends, and my fellow single ladies, I am here for you to live vicariously through me.
I'm obsessed.
Because all of my friends that are married and have girlfriends, they love hearing my stories.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to share that with some of my followers and see, should I go on a date with Kevin? Is he good enough for it?
I cannot wait to weigh in. So we're going to put Sophia's handles, obviously, in all of the descriptions, and on our social media, we'll have a bunch of things. So make sure you lock in with her socials because it's going from Olympics to, the Bachelorette. Let's go. We're here for the crossover. That's awesome.
We'll see.
Sophia, I cannot wait. And let me tell you though, I personally, as somebody who promises to weigh in on every single question, my bar is going to be very high. So I'm just saying, these men better come with their best game if they want to get a chance to go on a date with you in one of the many adorable places in Cortina. So that's all I'm saying. Bar's high.
Yeah, hopefully I'm predicting that I'll have lots of options because who wouldn't want to go on a date with an Olympian? I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for some.
I cannot,
but we'll see.
I cannot imagine somebody who wouldn't want the opportunity. So the last question that I have for you here on the Powerful Podcast is obviously we are all about highlighting and empowering powerful women like yourself. So I want to know, Sophia, what does powerful mean to you?
To me, I think powerful is the power to adapt, adjust, and execute. To be able to deal with what you've been given and to calmly strategize what should you do next, because nothing's perfect. I think you're very powerful if you can take what you've been given and be able to mold it into what works for you.
I love that. Adaptability and doing that in so many different ways. That hit home with me just now. So thank you so much for sharing and for being on the Powerful Podcast. Cannot wait to root for you in Italy, in dating, and far beyond.
Well, thank you for having me on here. Thank you for your interest in my sport.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys tune in. Women's double luge, Sophia Kirkby and her partner. They're going to be crushing it for Team USA. We'll see you next time. Season 4 of the Powerful Podcast is getting you ready for the Winter Games in Milan Cortina. So look for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy this and don't want to miss an episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button.